Darvin Ham has high expectations for the big three next season, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking AD, LeBron, and Russell Westbrook. And on the one hand, what choice do they have right now? There's no market for Westbrook, whatever. Maybe at the trade deadline, he's an expiring contract. But, Jay, when I look at them, no, they still don't have enough shooting. I get it. When I look at them, LeBron, he's not the undisputed best player in basketball anymore. Maybe it's someone else, but maybe it's still him. There is still an argument that he is the best player in basketball. You can make one. AD, when last seen, Jay, in the playoffs or in the final, when they made that deep finals run, when they won the chip in the bubble, went up against Jokic. He was clearly the better player. He's clearly better than Jokic in that series, clearly. So the real issue has been LeBron and AD haven't stayed on the court. If they could each play 60-plus games, which they haven't done in a while other than in the bubble. Neither one's played over 50 in the 60s other than the bubble year for 5 years now, 4 years. Why can't they?
They can't. So, Darvin, the reason why we're talking about the Lakers, because I know a lot of people are Lakered out, right? Because it's been the talk of the offseason, that and Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. It's because Darvin Ham went on All the Smoke, which is a show on Showtime led by Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, and talked a lot about the relationship he had with Russell Westbrook. And one of the things after listening to that, Max, that it really brought to my attention is that, a lot of times, first off, we're moving towards this age, and it's always kind of been that case with coaches like Phil Jackson, Pat Riley, George Karl, Rick Carlisle, guys who have played the game, that understand the nuances, that have also then coached at a high level. And I'm not saying that, look, a guy like Eric Spoelstra never played the game at a high level, but still has great connectivity. It can happen there too. But one of the advantages that Darvin Ham has that is different than what they had in their previous coach is that the relatability, right? There are two types of relationships. There's a transactional relationship for a lot of times where you come in as a head coach, Max, you don't really know me. We're playing, you're like, here are the plays. We're trying to get together. You're trying to build a relationship with me, but it's a little bit awkward because you don't understand how I move, nor have you really taken the time because there's a lot for you to handle as a head coach, right? You're dealing with your GM, you're dealing with your president, you're dealing with your owner, you're dealing with teams, players, all that stuff, right? So I'm not saying that Frank Vogel didn't try, but it felt more like a transactional relationship. And you saw that in the way LeBron and statements about him coaching or things about AD or the way Russell felt about Frank Vogel, where Darvin Ham seems to have a little bit more of an approach that this is going to be a transformational relationship where he's spending time with Russell Westbrook, going out to dinner, right? Texting him, having multiple conversations with him outside of the practice facility. Same with Bron, same with AD. There's a relationship that is there. And when there's a relationship from a coach to a player, it's the same thing with corporations. If you don't know who your boss is, you don't really care. You're going to come in, you're going to do minimum work, right? Unless you have a crazy sense of pride and you're going to check in, you're going to check out. But if your boss takes the time to know a little bit about you, all of a sudden you're not willing to let your boss down because now you're in it
together.
You're in it together.
Now, here's the question, because this has always been with guys who played recently especially, and this is the case in baseball forever, and how do you thread that needle as a coach? And maybe you don't know because you haven't been a coach on that level, right? How do you thread the needle? I've been around enough. But you've been around them. How do they thread that needle? Where on the one hand, there's that relatability and everything, but on the other hand, they're the coach. Like, let me give you an example.
Oh, I can be extremely relatable to you, but there's a line in the sand.
But let me give you an example of a guy who I don't know if he's doing it. Steve Nash. Steve Nash won 2 MVPs, but it doesn't feel like he has the gravitas as a coach, at least from where I'm sitting.
But he's barely had any coaching experience overall. Which is one of the main reasons I'm concerned.
That's why you got to pay your dues.
You got to pay your dues.
Yeah. In the ranks.
Ime Udoka has paid his dues. Steve Kerr has paid his dues.
Darvin Ham.
Jason Kidd has paid his dues. Darvin Ham has paid his dues. He's worked with Giannis. He's worked with the bigs over in Milwaukee. He's spent time with the Lakers before. There's been a history there of learning how to say, hey, there's a balance, right? Come in close, but now that you're close, hey, stay over there because there's a line. And you have to understand there's a standard here that I expect. And I don't care who the hell you are. If you're not willing to abide by my rules, don't be on my team. But I love you and I care about you, but there's a delicate balance on how you go about that. I don't think Frank Vogel had that with LeBron James, AD, and Russ.
I think it's not only going through. I'm now like forget about Vogel for a second. I'm talking about guys who've played recently and are now coaching, or relatively recently, where there's some overlap between guys in the league now and them.
Willie Green, I'll give you another one with the Pelicans.
So there's one, what you said, experience. There's no substitute for experience, right? And paying your dues and learning how to thread that needle and be their friend, but also it's not a peer relationship. They are the coach. But it's also, I think, it puts a little distance between the player and the league, right? Like, it's tough for a guy who, a young, inexperienced coach who also played with some of these guys, if he doesn't have that coaching experience, to not relate to them like teammates, I imagine. But if you let some years pass and you have that coaching experience and you build that up and you see, oh, okay, I got it. This is how it's got to be done. And you observe as an assistant, et cetera, it changes that dynamic. And Darvin Ham, in that respect, Jay, from what you're describing, seems to be the ideal guy that they hired.
Look, and by the way, what's that? There's that line that, if it takes 10,000 hours at something to be an expert.
Yeah.
Right? So, like,
10,000 hours.
I mean, I've been doing TV for 15 years. I'm exponentially better now than what I was in year 3 of my career.
Right.
So you just keep working at it, but you also know tendencies, and you're willing to call people out for their BS. So Darvin brings that type of mental toughness to the table. And by the way, this team has a lot to prove, right? So the last 2 years, they've been smacked around.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's the same way we talk about LeBron going back to the Drew League, earning that street cred within LA, right? It feels different with this team because now people are taking their jabs at them. And there's a lot on the line for Russell Westbrook, who opted in, who now, we talked about this, Max, a lot of people are going to be looking at how he handles this year, whether he goes or whether he stays, if he's willing to buy in. Same thing we talked about James Harden. Like, well, we'll see if he really buys into this play. I'm like, okay, but still, I mean, James Harden didn't opt into his deal.
No.
He opted out, okay? He took less money. He's saying bring anybody on board who we can do. So it all depends on your willingness to give in to be different. And now we have to see that with Russell Westbrook's basketball game on the defensive end in particular.
And now all that is great. Who is going to shoot the ball? Who are the spot up shoot? If the Lakers had all this dynamic that they've,
play fast.
But what I'm saying, if you had the same issues, same personality, same injury history, the whole thing, but let's say there were 3 knockdown shooters on the team, I'd feel differently about the team.
Look, there's still moves that they have to make. But if I'm Darvin Ham, let me give you inside back. I'm playing when Russell Westbrook has the ball. We're playing 14 or less. Like, let's go. Let's go. Push the ball. Here's things we're going to do in second-hand transition. Go play fast. Attack the rim. If you get the ball, I'm going to use you as a screener in a dunker spot. AD, you can space on the perimeter. I would do things like that to change it up quick because AD can knock down the mid-range. AD can also knock down the 3 a little bit too. Right?
Size,
so either LeBron or Russ have the ball. We're playing at different speeds. If I use Russ in the dunker spot to set screens for LeBron, then I have mismatches. I'll take LeBron's to the post. You still need shooters.
Bottom line is if you have great players, you have to figure it out as the coach how to use them.
Yes.
They may not be an ideal fit, but great players should be able to get it done with proper coaching if they buy in. And, maybe they are starting to. Keyshawn J. Willimax, brought to you by Progressive Insurance.
A lot of angry baseball purists out there.
Wow. Who is more vital to the Lakers' success this season is the question. Because Kendrick Perkins was on This Just In. I forgot who hosts the show, but handsome guy. 2 p.m. Eastern on ESPN.
You do this while you're looking at yourself.
And that's how I remind myself.
You have to remind yourself that you're handsome?
Even with one eye, I can see how handsome I am. And he said that he thinks LeBron's got to essentially give AD the keys and run things through AD. And I wondered about that and pushed back because AD has not been on the court enough to hand him the keys. But I wonder, Jay, what you think about that. No, not yet.